Hey there everyone, and welcome back to the Disconnected. I've been running down all of my top lists for 2021, and now that the year is coming to an end, I think it's time we do a quick summary of how a lot of the boutique labels have fared this year. So let's dive right in. Alright, first one we're going to talk about tonight is 88 Films. Here's an example of one of their best releases of the year. This is The Young Master from Jackie Chan. They have put out a lot of incredible Asian titles this year. They've kept their toes in the horror well that they've been in for a few years, and they've also kept putting out solid Italian films. There's some Eurocrime films they've put out. It's been a really solid year for 88 Films, but the biggest thing to talk about with them is that they also started branching out to the United States. That has been the story for a few labels coming up. This has been the big one for 2021, but there are a couple coming in 2022, so we're going to keep an eye out on them. But yeah, this is a really solid year for 88 Films. I think they've done some really great work. Not really a lot of things that they've missed on. I sincerely hope that they start looking into branching even further into some of their things that they've done. I think that 88 Films is an example of a label that could do more to boil down into a very specific niche. And obviously, they've done that with things like Jackie Chan, Jean-Claude Van Damme, a lot of the Shaw Brothers releases. But if they went even further into some hidden gems rather than, like The Young Master and Armor of God that they put out this year, those are titles that a lot of people have heard of. But there's still a lot of really underserved titles that are just hidden in the ether that we could really be seeing some love and attention put into, just like this one. Okay, next one to discuss is a big one, and that is Arrow Video. Arrow Video put out some really incredible releases this year. This is True Romance in 4K, and this is legitimately one of my top 5 favorite releases of the year. They went above and beyond for this, but Arrow also had some troubling things happen this year. They were mostly bought out by the Hut Group, who also owns Zavi, and it has not been very good on the back end of their service. They have had a lot of issues with canceled orders, things taking longer than normal, their website having problems, and just on and on and on. The number of releases from Arrow has stayed pretty steady, but they've really started focusing on re-releasing things a lot in 2021. Now granted, I am not 100% against re-releases. I think that limited editions, such as this one, that a lot of people missed out on, they shouldn't have to pay like $120 to have a limited edition version of this True Romance now if they really want it. It should still be available. That being said, I understand that that's expensive and not really something that's feasible. But on the re-release side of things, we don't need The Hills Have Eyes in 4K to come out in the exact same packaging as the Blu-ray did just a few years ago, and give people who had the Blu-ray literally zero reason to upgrade except for that 4K disc. So personally, in my opinion, if you're going to want people to upgrade, at least change it up a little bit. And they've done that, like with Donnie Darko. Donnie Darko 4K came out, and it is a vastly different package than the Donnie Darko Blu-ray. But overall, Arrow Video had a pretty strong year. A lot of their titles were amazing. They did really good with box sets this year. They did really good with limited editions like this. The re-releases are really the only thing that bothered me. However, I do think with things like this and the Django 4K, I think it is a very promising future for Arrow as long as they keep focusing on things like this that are brand new to Arrow Video rather than on things like the Giallo Essentials that they had previously released and they're just getting repackaged. Next one to discuss is Bill Lustig-owned Blue Underground. There's not really a lot to say about Blue Underground. They don't put out a ton of titles, but when they do, they are top of the class. All I really hope for with Blue Underground is that they keep their quality of 4Ks to at least this level, and the world will be a better place simply because they are that good. Next one to talk about is Criterion. Criterion had a rough year, in my opinion. They finally broke into 4K, and it's good. They're not like stunning, amazing, top-of-the-line, best-of discs, but yeah, they're there at least, and titles like this are the ones that really got my attention this year. Deep Cover was a good release, but then they have things like the Wong Kar-wai box set that is basically just a trash release. The films are good. I'm obviously not disparaging the films. Wong Kar-wai is an incredible filmmaker. but the packaging is awful. And that continues with things like Citizen Kane. That continues with some of their other releases where, like, the booklet is too big to fit in the case, and it comes literally damaged. It makes zero sense to do that. But the big story with them is how they used to be the gold standard of all boutique labels, and they're just not anymore, and that's just the sad truth. I mean, this movie is ridiculously great, and a lot of people involved in it are still alive, and there's not even a commentary track on here. Not even with film historians, not with anybody else analyzing the film, nothing at all. There's just no commentary track. But yet we're getting things from other companies with literally like 4 commentary tracks. Look at Ricky O from 88 Films, and it has a crazy amount of commentaries on that disc. And this deserves at least one. I would have given up one of the Ricky O commentaries to have this one have one. Yes, it's a different company, but that shows where they're headed. And in my opinion, Criterion has obviously fallen by the wayside. They're probably like a C-tier label at this point. Yes, a lot of their films are really good, but they deserve a lot better treatment than what they're getting. Next one to discuss is Eureka. Eureka has had literally one of the best years in boutique Blu-rays ever. They have really shined talking about Asian cinema, Hong Kong cinema, and putting out just constant barrage of high-end products. Duel to the Death is probably the best example of what they put out this year, but they've done other things that are also great, like the Cinematic Vengeance box set and a lot more of the Sammo Hung titles, and it just goes on and on and on. With Eureka, I really just hope that they keep doing what they're doing. A lot of their titles, as discussed on Discovering Cinema with Flip the other night, a lot of their titles are very safe, and I think that they could do a little better to break those down, just like I said with 88 Films, and go just a little deeper. And a lot of these, like Duel to the Death, is a very famous title, which makes a lot of people happy that we got it. But also, if you're going to do that, pepper in a few more that are not only not popular titles, but very unheard of titles that are also high quality. Asian cinema is a bottomless pit of gold, and if you could find, some of those that we're able to get a good transfer of, get some supplements for, get Frank Jiang involved, it's something that you could put out a great product that matches this. And I just hope that they keep going where they're going. If they break into 4K, that would be amazing, but not certainly counting on that. And we'll see what happens this year. They did promise every single month we'll have at least one release from Hong Kong, and so far we've had announcements up through March, I think, and they are already on track. The next label I wanted to talk about is not a huge label, but is one that I think deserves a lot more attention, and that is Gold Ninja Video. Gold Ninja Video has a great year, primarily because they did an Indiegogo campaign to try to fund a few more releases, and they met their goal, and then they set a lofty goal to try to raise even more so that they could buy a film scanner. It was like a $30,000 goal, something crazy like that, and surprisingly, they met that, and they went above and beyond that. And now Justin DeClue, who is behind Gold Ninja Video, I really see a bright future for him, and I hope a lot more people put time and energy into paying attention to them, because yes, what they put out primarily is public domain films, but he puts so much of himself into every single release, and his energy is just contagious. And it's crazy when a movie comes out that is shown on public broadcast TV late nights in the 80s, and it gets this boutique treatment from somebody that just loves the movie, and they get commentaries recorded, they get supplements from as many people as they can, and they put this out in a limited edition release that anybody can purchase. And Gold Ninja Video deserves so much attention and so much credit for what they're doing to help preserve cinema. Next one to discuss is the Australian label Imprint Films. Imprint Films is a sub-label of Via Vision, and they have had a pretty remarkable year. Very consistent product, high-end box sets, really good limited edition titles like the Stir of Echoes, and most of the time they have a good amount of supplements. There are some of the titles that don't have very many. This is one that I picked because it's pretty full, but they overall are just doing a great job. I think that they had a really solid 2021, and the biggest thing is that they put out a lot of titles that had never been on Blu-ray before. They were brand new to high definition, and I just sincerely hope that they're able to continue doing that, because they are paving the way for some other labels, even though they're a pretty young label themselves. And I'm stoked that they're able to get some of these Paramount titles that have just been stuck in the ether for years, and they are finally coming out, and not all of them are getting US releases, so it's a good thing that we're getting those. And obviously Imprint has been very prolific this year, releasing you know, some months like 8 titles. So it's been a very strong year for them. Next one to talk about is the label that I have always called the most consistent label in the boutique Blu-ray game, and that is Indicator. Indicator has had a great year, and the hard thing to say with Indicator is that there's nothing really like jumping out to talk about, because they're just always high quality. They are top-notch, like this release, hard box, really nice book, tons of special features on every single disc, and they're great. The only real thing that I can say about Indicator that's cool is starting in January of 2022, they are also now distributing through the US. So we have that to look forward to. But yeah, they just keep doing what they're doing. I would love to see them dip into 4K. I would love to see them take some more risks. But overall, they're just an incredibly stellar company. Every month, you know, 3 or 4 titles or a big box set and maybe one other title. I think they took 1 or 2 months off this year, but other than that, just chock full of amazingness. The next label to talk about is one that gets a ton of love on this channel, and that is Kino Lorber. Kino Lorber has had a really strong year, putting out titles like The Long Goodbye featuring Elliot Gould here. They have really started pushing their slipcovers, I think because they have seen the success that other labels have had with slipcovers, and so they are trying to expand the collectability of their releases, and I think it's working. I think that they're selling more of these titles primarily because of the slipcovers, and that's kind of sad. Because they've always been a pretty high quality company. Until about 2018, they were very bare bones. But this year, they have shown that they could dive into releases like this one that have a lot of special features and really bring a more cohesive package for, surprisingly, about the same price. They have had the best sales out of any boutique this entire year, obviously, by a long shot. They put out so many titles. Literally, every single month, they are releasing a ton of titles. But the big thing for Kino this year is they dipped into the 4K game, and they did a surprisingly really good job. They look great, they sound great. There was some problems on 1 or 2 of the discs, and they're getting worked out, but pretty much every company in this video has had at least one problem. A handful of them did not, but it's not easy in COVID times and supply chain issues and, you know, working remotely to QC all of these perfectly. Kino puts out so many titles that some of those mistakes are bound to slip through the cracks. But overall, I guarantee you 2022 is going to be a really great year for them. And what we already see announced for like January through March, it's already looking to be a top-notch year for them. The next one is sort of a sleeper label that does not get enough attention, including from on this channel, and I definitely want to change that, and that is Mondo Macabro. Mondo Macabro is a very, again, just like Indicator, a very consistent label in that all of their titles come with good supplements. They always have the red case limited edition Blu-rays that they put out first, and they come with all kinds of you know, love and care thrown into the restorations, and they always look good. But the big thing is that they always have that feel on their movies. They are always a movie that you can sense, like, yeah, this is a Mondo Macabro title. And I think that a lot of that has to deal with Jared, who runs Mondo Macabro. He is a great person and puts in so much effort into these that I just can't wait for more people to discover them as years go on. And they've been around for quite some time. So I'm hoping that 2022 is a banner year for them. And it does sound like Jared has a lot of stuff lined up, and the rumor is they might be doing their first 4K this year, so we shall see. MVD Rewind. So MVD Rewind is a label that has had some off time. They were primarily quiet for a lot of 2021, and then it started picking up in the summer into the fall, and this is an example of one of their better releases. This is Final Justice, and one thing that's really cool is that all of their slipcovers for this, for their first print run, are unique. They have a very specific tone of color on the front that are not all the same, and they did that to make it look like it was sun faded. I really like personal touches like that. They've done some others where it looks like the owner's old rental store where he went when he was younger, things like that. It just makes it feel like that much more personal of a label. Now, MVD Rewind started to pick it up at the end of the year, but there are some troubling things. They did put out some re-releases from old Scorpion titles, and that, honestly, that's fine. They were out of print. They're going for a lot of money. Everybody deserves another chance to get them. I really hope that they continue to focus on things like this that have not had disc releases previously, and I think that that would help them. It would bring a lot more attention to their label. Next is a label that a lot of people that watch this channel knew that I loved, and that is Scream Factory. So this is an example of one of their best releases of the year. Event Horizon, chock full of all kinds of extras, really great looking transfer, winner of a release. I love it. That being said, Scream Factory did not have a great year. They put out 5 Halloween movies in 4K that all look great, and they're full of special features. We've had tons of releases for those films. Yes, 4 of those were brand new to 4K, and the first one was not brand new to 4K, but it did get a brand new 4K transfer and looks a lot better than the old one. So that's great that they look better, but I wish that they would focus on things like this, or like Krampus, like they did, where that got a new 4K transfer. 2022 looks to be a better year for them. They've already announced some brand new to even Blu-ray titles like Alligator, and that one's even jumping to 4K. They've got more Hammer coming. It looks to be a good year from them, and I'm thinking that COVID just really hit them hard over the last year and a half, and I don't think they were super prepared for something like this, which honestly, I don't fault them. I don't think a lot of labels, while they're looking at how to chart the next 5 years, think, what if there's a global pandemic, and how are we going to respond to that? But I think this is going to make every label stronger, and they, moving forward, are probably going to be doing a lot better. Next up is my second favorite label of the year, and that is Second Sight. Second Sight is from the UK, and every single thing that they released this year is a winner. I don't think there's a movie that they put out this year that was bad. All of their releases have a ton of special features. I think everything that they put out this year is in one of these limited edition hard boxes with a book, posters, postcards sort of release, and they're great. They did things like The Guest in 4K, Babadook in 4K. They've got big titles coming next year like Drive in 4K. They are working on Martin in 4K. They're working on a new release of Dog Soldiers in 4K. Tons of stuff that we are just absolutely stoked to hear that it's coming, but genuinely one of the highest quality labels out there, and there's not a whole lot more that they could do. The only thing that I would really wish for with Second Sight is that they release more titles. And honestly, if that means that they can't put as much love into these releases like this one, I'm okay with it. Keep putting out 1 or 2 a month at most, and I will be fine with that, because these are top tier, nearly the best of the best. The next one to discuss is my favorite label of the year, and I think that that is surprising because they're also my most improved label of the year, is the way I would call it. And that is Severin Films. So I've been a fan of Severin for a long time. However, not all of their titles always grabbed me. They're not something that really made me think I need to jump out and pre-order that. Granted, I did a lot of them, but this year they emerged as a label that can put out high quality films in high quality packaging with high quality extras, and really show that love and support to each of them. This is just a perfect example of that. There are more than 8 hours of special features on the Santa Sangre 4K, on top of the Santa Sangre 4K looking and sounding better than it ever has. Absolutely great 4K, and a really incredible package overall. Obviously, this is a re-release. They'd put this out on Blu-ray previously and DVD, but this is the best this has ever looked by a long shot. And with other things like their Andy Milligan box set, their Christopher Lee box set, and I don't have it in hand yet, but the All the Haunts Be Ours box set, the folk horror box, that is potentially going to be like release of the year material, but I don't have it yet. So as much as it's supposed to be a 2021 release, that may end up on my 2022 list. And they are emerging as somebody that can be trusted with every single thing except their website. That is the number one thing that Severin needs to do in the new year, is find a new host or something to make it so that when they have sales, their website does not crash immediately. And they did the right thing this year. For the first time after their Black Friday sale, they gifted everybody that participated in the sale a $20 gift card for dealing with the crappy website. And that's a huge, awesome move. I'm so glad that they did that. It shows that they know something is wrong, but they really need to fix it. And moving forward, that would make them a much more trustworthy company. Next up, their sub-label Scream Factory gets a lot of love, but I wanted to shout out Shout Factory, and primarily because of releases like this. Old Henry is one of the standout films of the year. This was an incredible movie, and they are continuing to put out other titles next to their Scream Factory line, like their Shout Select titles that are pretty good. And they've announced other things like Liar Liars coming in 2022. I hope to see some better titles, and one of the biggest things is I hope that they do end up doing more supplements and better transfers for some of these, and just continue to put out a solid product. And yeah, Shout Factory's been around for quite some time, and it shows. It almost feels like they are hitting their stride a few years ago and coming down from that, but every once in a while there's something in the rough that is a true gem. And Old Henry is the perfect example for that. And yeah, Barack Obama loved it, and I loved it, and I hope a lot more people watch this movie because it is incredible. All right, only a couple left I'm going to talk about, but one of them is a big breakout star from 2021, and that is Australia's Umbrella. Umbrella has done some really great releases like this Stunt Rock. They are emerging with a few different sub-labels like their Sunburnt Films. They really focus on things like Drive-In Delirium, things like Stunt Rock that have not had great Blu-ray releases, and release them in a way that are just great. Lots of new to Blu-ray, uncut films. They're doing really good work, and they just deserve a lot more attention. And now that places like Orbit are carrying them, Diabolic DVDs carrying them more, Grindhouse Video has even been carrying them, I hope that more people are seeing that we have an option for films elsewhere that is not just, you know, Arrow Video from the UK or Second Sight. We have things like Imprint and Umbrella and so many others that are emerging as really high quality labels. All right, next up is one of my favorites, and that is Vinegar Syndrome. This is a 4K release, and I think that is the big story heading into 2022 for Vinegar Syndrome, and that is that they seem to be focusing on 4K releases quite a bit. And I personally think that's a great thing. There are a lot of people that think like Ebola Syndrome didn't need a 4K release, and yeah, to be honest, none of these really need a 4K release, but they look even better, so why not? I'm totally okay with that. I'm totally okay with preserving these at the best possible resolution with HDR and giving it the best presentation that we can. Vinegar Syndrome had a slight down year compared to the rest of the, you know, their last 4 or 5 years, but they're not all going to be perfect. And I think that one of the reasons that this was a down year for them is that they are experimenting, and that can't really be seen as a bad thing. I'm more than happy with that. I'm glad that they're putting out titles like Terminal Island. It matches a tone to similar old titles that they put out like Sudden Fury. They also are continuing through the horror genre and putting out titles that are meaningful with big names attached like Dario Argento's Trauma or, you know, Paul Morrissey's Flesh for Frankenstein to match Severin's Blood for Dracula. They did some really good things. 2022, though, looks to be huge. In 2022, they're one of the labels that I'm looking forward to the most, which that's generally the case, but this year a lot more so than normal. We know of at least 13 4K discs that you're going to be getting this year if you're a subscriber, which is a huge amount, and I just can't wait to see what some of these unveiled titles are, and if some of the rumors I've heard are true, we're going to be in for a pretty big 2022. And finally, I kind of wanted to lump these all together, but that is Vinegar Syndrome's list of partner labels. First thing I will say is, yes, there are too many of them. We are closing out the year of 2021 with, I think, 17 or 19 partner labels, something like that. And on January 1st, just a couple days, we're getting even more partner labels announced, which is wild. OCN Distribution is doing great work. I'm not going to deny that. All of the partner labels have really high quality. They are great releases, and most of them are putting out really good films. The best one, in my opinion, the strongest from the very first release all the way through, has been Fun City Editions. They are just top-notch. They are essentially for partner labels like the Criterion of yore, where they are really good, really high-quality, peak-level films that more people need to see, and they are not the only label that are putting out some of these great titles. I think Utopia has put out some really great titles. Altered Innocence is amazing. Gunpowder and Sky is showing to be one of the highest quality releases through the partner labels so far. But then you have the classics, like AGFA has been there since the very beginning, and they are just continuing to do great things like Boarding House and She-Freak, and it's been a great year for partner labels, but it's also overwhelming. There are so many titles coming out through partner labels. Obviously, you don't need to collect all of them. That's a huge undertaking, but it is just so many where there's always something for everyone. And I think that is the bright side of all of these partner labels that I really need to hold on to. And it helps to see that there's something there for every taste. And December was the perfect example for that. We got Asian cinema, we got queer cinema, we got modern films, we got some older films, and they are great releases. All of them are getting high quality releases, so I'm not really one to complain about that. I sincerely look forward to what else that they have coming, and I hope for a bright 2022 for that. All right, to summarize a little bit as we close out here, I would say number one label of the year has easily been Severin, most improved by a long shot. Number two for me has been Second Sight Films, because every single movie has been great. Every single release is loaded with features. So good. Number 3 for me would be Kino Lorber. Kino Lorber has put out a slew of titles that I've really wanted for a long time. Really high quality, dipping into 4K, putting slipcovers on things, and really putting out a package for collectors that I just love. Other labels that are out there that are doing really good work. 88 Films, Eureka has been doing amazing. All of the partner labels from Vinegar Syndrome, including Vinegar Syndrome themselves, they've all had really strong years. And 2022 looks to be a great year. I can't wait to see what else we have coming, but as usual, I will close this up by saying, from one collector to all of you, have a good night.